Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of Devil Advocate Podcast. We'll be here previewing the United Luton game tomorrow. Delighted to be joined by Jonathan, Phil Marsh, an ex-United player, and Zach from We Are Luton Town. Good to get, for once, two sides of an argument for a game. So, welcome, gents.
Thanks for having me on.
Cheers, Pete.
No worries. Well, anyway, we'll crack right into it. Another terrible night for United. Come into this game, obviously, the Champions League campaign isn't looking too great at the moment after Copenhagen on Wednesday. So, obviously, almost out of choice. Not even choice. Like, there's no choice now. We have to nearly focus completely on domestic football. So, basically, how crucial is this game for our season and for Ten Hag? I'll start with you, Jonathan.
Yeah, we seem to be saying this after every game this season so far. How crucial is the next game? But we just can't seem to get that bit of momentum going. Every time it looks like we're getting a bit of form or getting a run of results, and there's a massive, big slap in the face. I mean, the other night was one of the most impressive 35 minutes of football we've seen so far from the team. But look, VAR strikes again, and it's getting to a point now where it's very, very difficult to enjoy football. I mean, it's hard enough being a United fan at the minute and watching the garbage we've watched this season, with VAR is really just adding to that now at the minute. And look, it's not the entire story either. I mean, we had a red card the other night. We should have dealt with it better, and it's kind of testament to this team at the minute that they're just very, very weak mentally. And the first thing I said was, when we went down to 10 men, right, just see it out to half time. I know there was 13 minutes added on because of the incident that happened in the crowd, but just see it out to half time and try and get in a 2-0 and, manage the game from there. But as soon as Copenhagen scored that first goal through El Yunusi, you kind of knew it was coming, looking at the season so far. So, yeah, another massive game tomorrow, and it is an absolutely massive banana skin because there's so much expected of United to win comfortably tomorrow, and it's just, I just cannot see it working out that way, unfortunately.
Yeah, you literally echoed my thoughts there. I was watching with a mate on Wednesday night, and literally when it went 2-0, the red card, it was literally like, oh, here we go again. You kind of just knew what was going to happen. You knew it was going to fall off, and I think we conceded us like 2 minutes after the red card, which is just very on brand for us at the moment. That there's just no composure. There's no, like, as you said, like, the mentality's all wrong, and there's no one really who just like, all right, lads, let's just settle down. And even when it went 2-1, it was like we were chasing. It was like it was injury time in the second half. We were like chasing that third goal a lot. And I know people can say like, oh, the penalty and all that, so on. The second one, it was questionable. But that did come from us being very ragged, very like helter-skelter football. And that's where all our issues kind of come from a lot of the time, when we're too open and so on. Yeah, so it's just, yeah, it's very unsurprising, but it doesn't get any easier. So, Phil, do you have anything to add on that?
No, I totally agree with both of your thoughts there on the Copenhagen game. I think, as we just said then, 35 minutes, he was playing some really good football, controlling the game. I thought Copenhagen were really poor as well. I thought, we was dominating in all areas. And then, the Rashford sending off completely changed the game. But, just to add on to what Jonathan said there about, managing the game, I think, when I was at the club and sort of, the characters that we had in that team, your Roy Keanes and stuff, if there was any incidents on a pitch where there was, adversity or a sending off, I think, they would be the type of people who could manage the game and just sort of see it out till half time. And I think at this moment in time, with the players that we've got, it's been shown in abundance many a time that we haven't got that leadership and we haven't got that sort of mental toughness to see a game out, or to just even, manage a game during a game and say, there's 15, 20 minutes left here. We need to just sit in, even put 10 men behind the ball and just make sure we're getting at half time and sort of reassess and sort of go out with a different game plan in the second half. But yeah, as I say, it was disappointing. Some of the goals that we conceding again is just criminal. But yeah, the VAR decisions as well. I'm sure we're going to come on to that. But yeah, for me, it's sort of ruining the game at this moment in time. And hopefully there's something going to be done about it, because I'm sure there's loads of other people who feel the same way.
Yeah. And yeah, like you're saying about the game, like the last 20 minutes, we lost that game twice. Like 2-0 cruising, red cards. Second half was quite good. Like when Amrabat came on, they did kind of just slow it down. We have better players than Copenhagen. We should be able to beat them even with 10 men for an extent, like not for the whole game, but for like a period of time. And then like got very lucky with our penalty, but it almost like we got one back in the VAR stakes. But then like the 3-2 and the all composure they had going for that goal then just vanished when we went 3-2 up, which doesn't really make any sense. You should be more confident and composed when you're winning as opposed to when you're drawing. So it is weird, and even like we're so built for like memes and everyone laughing at us. Like everyone, their players laughing at or giving out about Garnacho. Like Garnacho was shushing their fans, and you're like, oh, this is going to come back to haunt us. Like you just know it's like a TV show. You're like, I know how this is going to end. It's just like a rerun you've watched at this point. But we won't go pure United. Obviously, dark times for us at the moment, so we'll try and bring some positivity into it. Obviously, Luton's first trip to Old Trafford in 30 odd years, and enjoying relatively good start to the season actually. You're outside the relegation zone at the moment, obviously, and you did all of us a favour last weekend, nearly beating Liverpool, but like, it was a great performance and so on. So yeah, Zach, how's the season gone for you as a fan? Like, what's the kind of general outlook on Luton as a whole? And obviously, there's two Irish lads on the pod, so we're obviously just want to hear about Chitosi Ogbeni, obviously as well.
Oh yeah, it's been a great start to the season. I think if you compare us to like the Burnley and Sheffield United who've come up with us, we've definitely had a far better start. Even though we're only two points ahead of them, I'd still comfortably say we've had a better start because we've picked up points that people didn't think we would get. Because most people wrote us off at the start of the season. Most people laughed at us signing Ogbene, actually. And Ogbene's turned out to be probably our best player this season. I think most fans would agree. He's been absolutely tearing defences to pieces since he's properly got into the starting lineup. So yeah, I think we've been good this season. We haven't had any games where, other than like maybe Brighton and Chelsea, where we've been properly battered. And we're looking competitive, which is the main thing. We're improving every single week. Obviously, that result against Liverpool last Sunday was massive. Getting a late draw at Forest and beating Everton away, all big results. And to be fair, we should have got something out of Spurs. So out of all the teams in the bottom area at the moment, I think we're in the best shape. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it tomorrow. It's going to be a great day regardless of the result. And again, we've not got much pressure on us. It's all on you guys, unfortunately. So yeah, I'm just hoping to go to Old Trafford and have a great day. And who knows, we might see a result at the expense of you.
Yeah, you probably will, to be honest. And I was saying to Keane before the show started, actually, like you mentioned there, like the win at Everton, and you got the draw against Liverpool. You can't have a thing against the Northwest sides, so it just wouldn't be surprising at all. And obviously, you mentioned Ogbene, but yeah, like obviously the two ex-United lads in the team as well. Like obviously, Chong got the goal last week, which was written in the stars that the ex-United guy would get the goal against Liverpool. And unfortunately, you couldn't hold out. But what have you made of his impact so far, as well as Ted and Mengi's?
I think Chong's made a good impact so far. He started off straight in the team because the main reason most fans were buzzing to see him signed on was because when Birmingham played us at home a few years ago, we lost 5-0 in the Championship. But he absolutely ran the show. Like, genuinely, I've never seen an opposition player get a standing ovation from the home fans at Kenilworth Road, but he's the only one that I ever know that did, because that day he turned into prime Messi. Honestly, it was unbelievable. So that, I think, ever since that day, all fans fell in love with him and wanted to sign him. So we always knew if we went up to the Premier League, there was always that feeling where like, yeah, we'll sign him. So I think there's like elements to it, as in how he started off, because he has started well, but he hasn't started every single game. So yeah, I feel like he can break into the team. He's facing a bit of competition at the moment with Andros Townsend, but as Townsend comes back to fitness, that means Chong will play more in his position, because obviously Townsend's not fully fit yet. And Mengi is really impressed me because he's not played many senior games. He's played like 1 or 2 for United and then a few at Derby and Birmingham, but then just settle into the Premier League so well. He hasn't put a foot wrong. And against Liverpool, he was absolutely everywhere. So it was great. It's great to see them both succeeding so much, because I both really like them as players. You can see the talent, you can see the potential there. And we're forgetting that they're both really still young. So it was great for Chong to get the winner against Liverpool as well. And I saw this thing the other day where for the goal against Liverpool, Barkley won the ball, who's ex-Everton, and played it to Kabore, who's on loan from Man City, who played it to Chong, who's ex-Man United, so who scored. So the ultimate Liverpool nightmare goal that was. So yeah, it's been a good start to the season for most players, I would say. So yeah, it's been all right.
Yeah, like obviously when you guys came up, the two comparisons you were getting, one was obviously anytime a small club comes up who have limited budget, there is the will Derby's 07, 08 record get beaten, like you will beat that obviously now. But one of my mates actually was saying the comparison that I actually think is quite good. Like you're kind of like a Blackpool kind of side in a way, like you've kind of a random assortment of players. Got like your Andros Townsend, Ross Barkley, and you just have a sprinkling of a lot of different players and so on. But no, it's good. Like it's been a really like interesting addition to the Premier League. We've had Burnley and Sheffield United up a lot in recent years, so it is like everyone is looking forward to going to Kenilworth Road. Like I don't think after watching that Liverpool game, I think United will end up losing there. But it is like it's a completely different world, and it's just added like you have like the Premier League's obviously full of money now, and there's so much like state influence and so on. It kind of feels like the real football, like the heart and soul of football, is still there when you see Luton. So it's been a really good addition to the Premier League. And like Mengi, like you say, like this will be his first ever Premier League game at Old Trafford. He only played like 35 minutes for us, played Europa League and Champions League. So I presume he'll get him and Chong will get good receptions. And I kind of would put Mengi in the bracket of like an Axel Twansabi of he had a lot of talent, rated in the academy for a long time, few loans here and there, a lot of injuries, and then it was almost like you're better off to go somewhere else. So it's good to see him doing well. But we'll just move on to just talking about like obviously back to United to an extent. Maybe we'll get the Luton point of view first, and then we can see what us lads think. So obviously tomorrow is a huge game for United right before the international break, but also just for Eric Ten Hag's future as a whole at the moment. Like every single game is must win. So like from an outside point of view, like what do you make of the current situation at United? How much would you place it on the manager? Do you think he's under pressure? Do you think he should be sacked basically?
I think it's, no offence, but I think that genuinely it's been a bit of a circus lately, as in how the club's run. And we've known that for years with the Glazers, that they're terrible owners. They should not be near the football club. And Man United's a rich club with a great history and do not deserve to really be dragged in the mud like that. So it's just, I think Ten Hag's a good manager. I thought it was a great appointment when he came in and he did do well. But it's just the kind of that Man United manager cycle where it's like start off really well, then drop off a bit, players don't like it, blah, blah, and then it all just keeps going in a circle. But the thing is about the Man United manager job is that if you take it as manager, you know that it's going to come with its risks. Like you could lose a dressing room, you could lose the fans, and that could be the end of you. So I do think Ten Hag is a good manager. I do think he is potentially the man to lead United forward, but I just don't see it happening. If we get any sort of result tomorrow, I feel like he'll be out the door within minutes. So I feel for the guy because I think he's good, got good philosophy, got good players, and he's building quite a decent squad. But things just aren't clicking at the moment. So especially after the loss against Copenhagen, I feel like not winning against us at home would be the final straw. And I think most Man United fans would think that not winning against us at home is just a disgrace. And I don't blame them, to be fair. I think if I was a Man United fan and saw us playing Luton at home, I'd think that's literally the easiest 3 points of the season.
Yeah, it's hard like to disagree with what you said there. And it's nice to hear another fan kind of echoing what United fans say. Like there's obviously bigger issues at our football club than the manager, but there is still pressure and there's still expectations and standards. And at the moment, we're obviously falling well below them. So, I'll just ask you, Phil, first, actually. Sorry, a question came in just asking, like, obviously, as a former player with, sorry, it's not coming up. Like, Phil, what do you think, Mitch, like, how would Sir Alex have dealt with it in your time? I know you mentioned the dressing room stuff, but even, like, there's been so many off-field issues this season so far. how do you think Alex Ferguson would have dealt with them? Would have even got into the public domain?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, this, and I think a lot of people probably wouldn't know this, but Sir Alex Ferguson never really dealt with a lot of things. I think the players used to deal with it. I'll touch on that again, like going back to when I was there, because of the characters we had in the dressing room, the leaders, the way everyone's standards were so high, whether it be in training or whether it be an issue outside of football. Everything would just get dealt with in the changing rooms or in-house. Nothing would really get leaked into the media. Whatever the problems were, and they used to just get dealt with. I think at the moment you're seeing a massive sort of, comparison with that, with this group of players. I think, all the little things that are happening are getting exposed into the media. All the performances are sort of, being exposed on the pitch, and you can sort of see, in certain players' faces, really. I can see it when I watch them that, it's a massive pressure playing for Man United. Let's not, forget about that. But especially when things aren't going well and the expectation's still there, you've got to have real steel and real sort of grit to pull through them situations. And I think, some of these players are proving that they're not up to the task with this. And I think it's only a matter of time, really, for some of these players to sort of be moved on. Obviously, January is coming round. I think there'll be a lot of movement in that window, especially if results don't keep going the way that we want them to. But yeah, I just come back to that point. I think, obviously, when I was at the club, as I say, if they lost a game, the difference in mindset was, I think those players would have been straight back onto the training pitch, working the socks off and sort of chomping at the bit to get out there again. Whereas I think, with the way we're going at the moment, we'd seem to lose a game, and then obviously all the pressure and the stuff that's going around the club just intensifies everything and sort of heaped more pressure onto these players, and they're going out and it feels and looks like they're playing with the weight of the world on their shoulders. So it's a difficult situation to come out of, but as I say, there's only them players who can get themselves out of this the situation that they're in. And for me, we haven't got enough players with that, mental toughness and capabilities, really, of coming through these sticky periods. So it's going to be interesting to see how we bounce back. And as I say, we have had a lot of injuries, which you can sort of, that has a part to play in why we've not been as good this season from last year. But then again, you look at the players that are coming in, and the sort of money that the manager has spent, and the squad depth that we should have. Say should have, because we have spent a lot of money, and all these players that are playing are internationals. But for me, just a lot of them aren't good enough, and obviously that's been proven in the way we've played this year, all year, really. For me, we've not really played well at all.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. That then, like, the weird thing is, like when we buy these players, we do think like I know Casemiro and Varane. There is the question why Real Madrid selling these guys. Same when Schweinsteiger joined us, it was like, if they don't want them, why should we want them? But we were all like happy with those guys, especially last season. I know Martinez and Shaw are a big miss, and Rashford's gone off the boil, and Bruno's not really cutting it. But I almost feel like you said, like there's a way to the world playing for United. And I think it's even bigger now than it ever was before, just because of how bad the last 10 years has been. Like, it's such a toxic atmosphere. When something goes wrong, everything goes wrong. Yeah. That I almost think the players have kind of like gone down with the sinking ship. Like that kind of feel. It's like there's like the top of the club is in ruins. The standards are so low. The expectations are low, and so on. That just seep down to the players. That I think a lot of these players came to Man United I don't think many ever come to United thinking this is just a payday. They're probably like, I'm joining one of the biggest clubs in the world. I grew up watching this team and so on, and I want to be part of like success, and I want to bring it all back. But you hear from like players like Ibrahimovic said it, Van Gaal said it, Mourinho said it, that you get in and you almost don't believe the media are right about what they're saying about the club or the leagues. You're like, that couldn't be that bad. And they get in, you're like, God, like the things on the ground. So you're like, hopefully there'll be news regarding the takeover or the partial takeover in like after this game, like hopefully next week. But where do you stand on everything at the moment, Jonathan?
Yeah, I think at times the players have conveniently used the ownership situation something to hide behind, because they're so in tune nowadays with social media and stuff like that. They're kind of in that public domain all the time, 24/7. I mean, you only had to see that during the week when Marcus Rashford was replying to the United Stand. I mean, these guys are constantly on social media. They're in that circle, so they see what fans and pundits and all are saying. And I think that's one of their weaknesses, is that they're. I tweeted this a while back, and I said I think it's just the Glazer situation is well documented. We all know that, we're all well aware of the issues that they've caused at the club, but at the same time, it's still 11 players versus 11 players on a pitch. When you go into a football pitch, your mentality should be purely on beating the opposition in front of you. You shouldn't concede a goal and go, well, we wouldn't have conceded that if the Glazers weren't in charge, or we would have scored more goals if the Glazers had sold up earlier. It's just become a bit of an excuse as well that the players kind of use now to protect themselves. And the injury situation as well, it's well documented. I mean, but they're not the only club in the Premier League that have had injury issues. I mean, you see a lot of clubs have picked up injuries because of the ramifications of last season, that absolutely season that never seemed like it was going to end, with the World Cup smashed in the middle of it. So a lot of teams are bearing the brunt of injuries now. I mean, you look at Man City, lost De Bruyne there for the last 3 months or so with a hamstring injury. So other teams have been affected too. Phil touched on it there. We've got plenty of players at the club that are well able to sit in there. I understand it's not similar quality. You don't have like-for-like replacement for the likes of Shaw or Lissandro Martinez. But, I mean, it comes to a point where the players have to stand up. You're a Man United player. You have to be able to deal with some level of pressure. And you only see a player's ability to deal with pressure when the going gets tough. And we've seen it under Ferguson as well. I mean, people do forget. We had some tough times under Fergie as well, when the players had to stand up. I mean, remember at the end of that 08-09 season when United were going head-to-head with Liverpool for the title, and they'd lost a couple of games in a row, and they were losing at home to Villa, and then on came Kiko Makeda, and I mean, the rest is history. But that team was under pressure. They were throwing that league away to their bitter rivals, Liverpool at the time. But like that group of players just had that backbone and ability to fight back, get the required points and get over the line. And that's the thing. You only see players' ability to deal with pressure when the going gets tough. And last season, pretty much everything went well. They exceeded expectations. They won the League Cup. They went on a magnificent run after the World Cup. And, you know, you see the likes of Marcus Rashford flying, because he's a confidence player. He does well when he's full of confidence. And you can see now he hasn't got an ounce of confidence, and he couldn't hit a barn door. And look, that's the life of a footballer as well. But yeah, look, I mean, it will definitely help, I think, if this Sir Jim Ratcliffe deal goes through in the next couple of weeks, as is documented. It's not going to be a quick fix, but it will lift the big dark cloud that's over the club at the moment. And like Phil said as well, hopefully we do have some sort of positive activity in January, because I think we do need it. We need a bit of freshness in the changing room, some sort of different mentality, and maybe ship out a few players that are in the dressing room that are probably causing more issues than we can see on the outside. No less so than the likes of Jadon Sancho, and so get him out the door.
Yeah, I agree with you. Definitely on the excuse part. It is like what you're saying there is almost the jokes that are made about Gary Neville being like, oh, they didn't mark him at the back post. It's the Glazers' fault. There are those basic requirements of a football player that you have to have. Like, it's like Dalot for the third goal. Like, how do you not notice a fellow human being standing beside you or running beside you? It just made no sense. So that's just basic level defending that you would almost back yourself to be able to do, being like, I need to mark my man in the box. I do think it's an excuse. It's obviously massive, like the overriding issue United is the Glazers. But for example, most of our home loss this season, like we didn't lose at home to Crystal Palace and Brighton because of the Glazers and like those kind of results. So, and like tomorrow there'll be no excuse. Injuries is not an excuse. Glazers aren't an excuse for playing, with all respect, like you said to yourself, for playing Luton. Like we should be putting Luton aside. If we're a serious team, we should be putting them aside, no problem. And speaking of kind of excuses, but also the biggest talking point, unfortunately, in football at the moment, VAR. Like I find, well, obviously talk about VAR for a bit because that's just the way everything is at the moment. I know people were talking about VAR on Wednesday night, and there's been a lot of like iffy calls against us this season. But I kind of think it's almost become like a built-in excuse for players and managers and fan bases when you lose, that you can just be like, well, it was VAR's fault. I don't think we conceded 4 goals to Copenhagen. They hadn't conceded a goal against they hadn't scored a goal against an English team in years. Like, that's why we lost, because of a bad mentality and bad marking and all those things. And you almost at this point have to take into account that VAR probably will make some dodgy calls, and you're going to have to work around it. But everyone can have to work around it at the moment. So I think it's becoming a built-in excuse. I thought it was an excuse when Arteta said it. You lost to Newcastle because you didn't play well. Like, you didn't deserve a result there. Like, if you were so good, you would have got a draw. You would have pulled the goal back. And even when Liverpool obviously was different because they had a legitimate goal just ruled out. They lost that game because they got 2 red cards. I thought more than any VAR calls. So we'll do the most common chat in football now, and I'll ask all 4 of you, like, what do you think? Like, is VAR becoming too big a thing in football now? Where do you stand on it? Would you like it gone? Would you like it modified? And has it ruined your experience, especially as a match-going fan? I'll start with yourself, Zach.
Yeah, I think VAR, as from a personal view, I'm not a fan of it at all. I don't like it. I think when we were in Championship League 1, League 2, it was great because the refs made some dodgy calls, but from that's human. It's a human error. There's nothing you can do about it. And sometimes they were blatant. Sometimes the rest right in front of it and still doesn't give it. But that's human error. That's not because you've paid millions for this fancy technology to be installed at each ground and it's still not to flipping work. So I think there's loads of different connotations with that and people's opinions. But I think from just our first few games with it, because the playoff final was our first ever game with it, and we had 3 goals disallowed. But since being in the Premier League, I've learned that what goes around kind of comes back around. Like, we had some dodgy calls given against us early doors, like at Brighton first day, João Pedro dived in the box, got a pen, they scored it, but then later in the game we got a dodgy pen after it, like, ball hit Dunk's elbow, probably not a handball, but it was given, and we scored first Premier League goal. And we've had some decisions against us which should have never gone against us, like we scored a few goals which got chalked off, had a few decisions gone against us, but then we got a dodgy pen versus Wolves. Like, that should never have been a pen. I'll say that now. That should have never ever been a pen. It, from my view, did not look like a pen, but we got given it. So it's just kind of what happens. Like, you see Gary O'Neill moaning about it every week now. And I think, yeah, you can moan about it to a degree, but at the end of the day, if your team didn't perform on the pitch, then that's your own fault, because if you score more goals than the other team, you win. It doesn't matter about VAR. So yeah, I do think personally it should be, I think, scratched just for a bit, and then you can slowly reintroduce it, but better, because it's just not up to scratch at the moment, because they've got the technology, but the people behind it is just wrong. So just reshuffle all that. I don't think anyone behind that's really fit for purpose at the moment.
Yeah, I personally can't. I don't think they'll scrap it, because it would be too much of a egg on the face for a while and brought it back. I don't think people would accept it coming back, because they remember, oh, this is how we used to have it. And if they tried to roll out something new, they'd be like, oh, we're not doing this again. How about yourself, Phil? Like, obviously, when you were at United, there was no such thing as VAR, and the allegations were that Fergie paid off all the refs. But what's your kind of take on it? And yeah.
For me, yeah, I'm not a massive fan of it. I think, when the first conversations were had about it, I was quite optimistic and thought it would improve the game, because there was a lot of decisions, going against teams that were, big calls and costing teams, 3 points, and they could have, ramifications of staying up or getting into the top 4 and, whatever. So I was all for it. I just think now it's just there's too many sort of grey areas for me, and I think we seen the other night with the sort of handballs before VAR. I don't remember all these like handballs and stuff being a thing. I think referees now, it's like there's 2 or 3 like every week. Like in some games, like obviously the United game the other day, there was 2 in one game, and I just don't really think it's benefiting the game. I think, when you look at some of the fouls and some of the handballs and some of the offside decisions, it's causing more controversy. And I think it's just, the stoppages and all this kind of thing. Yeah, it adds to the game in terms of, if you're needing a goal maybe late on and there's say 8-9 minutes added time, you've still got that opportunity to nick a goal. But I just think for what it's worth and for how much hassle and how much controversy and sort of, you know, the amount of criticism it's receiving, it's just, for me, it's not really worth the hassle. But I agree with you. I don't think they will scrap it. I think they've invested too much into it and too much money into it for it to be sort of scrapped completely. But I do think it definitely needs looking at, addressing, you know, sort of some of the stuff obviously needs to be outlined a lot better. And I think, again, it comes down to, for me, the biggest problem I have with it is, it comes down to interpretation on some of the decisions. You know, you've got one person who might view something as, you know, this, and then another person the week after who may view it slightly different. And that's why we're seeing conflicting decisions from one game to another. And I think that's why fans are getting so frustrated, really, with some of the decisions.
Yeah, it is that. It's funny, like, this was supposed to kind of take out the subjectivity and like chance out of football, kind of, but it's made it even more subjective because, as you said, like, there's 1 week there's no specialized VARs. They're just refs, and it's all, again, it is just a human making a decision, slowed down with even more. There's way more pressure on a VAR than there is in a ref, because you can understand a wrong decision we made in the heat of the moment, like a dodgy call, or I didn't see it properly, or there was someone in front of me, that kind of thing. Whereas now you're like, the whole world is like waiting on you to make this call. It is a lot of pressure, and I think they should have I think it should be like, you're a VAR, you're not a ref. Like, you shouldn't be doing VAR 1 week and then you're out on the pitch next week. It should be. I think maybe they are doing that, training these guys in, but Carabao, there's no VAR in their rounds, and it's kind of refreshing that you're like, oh, celebrate a goal, you know, to like wait 5 minutes. Like, now you celebrate something happened 3 minutes before. What's your take on it, Jonathan?
Yeah, I think with any sort of rule that's brought into a sport, it has to improve the sport overall to actually be beneficial. Like, I mean, you look at goal line technology, that's transformed the sport, and it's been an absolutely magnificent addition to the game. I know there was one big blunder. It was mentioned in the comments there by Julio, when Villa stayed up in 2020 and Bournemouth went down as a result of a malfunction in the goal line technology. But otherwise, it's been pretty on point. But with VAR, I mean, like, we were crying out for it for years, but we were crying out for it to come in to rectify the big blatant errors that we could see that weren't been seen by the referees, and to give them a dig out. But it's literally looking for reasons to disallow goals now, and I think that's the absolute opposite of why it was brought in. I mean, it's literally breaking down frame by frame goals that are scored, and they're looking for reasons to award penalties where there's not necessarily any. And, like, I mean, it's just that's not what this was designed for. It's given referees too much time to look for issues that aren't there, basically. And Zach touched on it there a minute ago. I mean, football was better when it was just referees making decisions in a moment. Okay, we had errors, we had massive errors, we had costly errors over the years, but you could rationalize them because it was just a human error making a decision in a split second. Whereas we were looking at it afterwards, we had multiple angles, it was slowed down, it was reversed, it was fast forward. But the referee and the linesman ultimately on the pitch on the day made a call. They made the calls in good faith. And look, it's why we love the game. There was human error, we could debate about it. Now we're literally just debating how wrong VAR is every week. And I'm like Phil, I just don't see it being scrapped because there's been too much money and too much effort and too much promotion put into it. But what I do think needs to happen is some sort of adaptation to it, and just have like maybe a review system similar to tennis, where teams get like 3 reviews a game, and you know they can call them, a bit like cricket as well. And you know, if you win your call, then you keep it. If you lose it, then you lose one of the reviews. It's the only way I can see it working going forward, because we can't continue with this fans in the crowd celebrating massive goals in sport, and they look around again then and it's been disallowed because someone's toenail is offside. I mean, that's not football. It's not sport. And I mean, I was watching another podcast the other day. I can't remember who it was, and they referenced the game in '99 when obviously United scored the 2 late goals, and they were like, it would literally be impossible to enjoy that euphoria today as a Man United fan, because the first thing you would have been doing when either Teddy Sheringham or Ollie scored the goals would have been looking for the VAR review. So, I mean, if that's the sort of emotion you're taking out of football, then the rule is defunct for me. And personally, I'd completely scrap it altogether, but I don't see it being scrapped. So I'd like to see it been kind of amended to a review system or something a bit more manageable and realistic.
Yeah, I think you touched on it there. You nailed it. Like it was, they're like looking for reasons to disallow goals now, where the whole thing was like clear and obvious errors, which you can understand being like that was missed by a ref. Like let's bail him out there. I don't think anyone has subjectivity and discussions after the game. Like, do you think that was a foul? Do you think it was a foul? Is kind of part of the fun. Whereas now you're like, okay, I need to get the rule book out, or I don't know what's going on here, what's going on there. It's ref missed like a blatant red card, like someone punched someone off the ball, something like that, or like it was just, here you missed that, just give that as a penalty, but not I'm going to re-ref the game for you and like watch it frame by frame and stop everything. And I think like if a red card takes 5 minutes to be given, it's not a red card, because you should know what a red card is almost the minute you see it. Be like, yeah, that's a, and it just give you yellow instead. So yeah, it is terrible. And like every time you score a goal now, you celebrate and you stop. You're like, I'm waiting for this not to be given. Like last week, the McTominay one, it was like 5 minutes waiting for it. And it really does just destroy the instantaneous nature of a game. And obviously for you, Zach, like coming from the Championship to the Premier League, you're like, oh, here's where the big boys play. And you're like, geez, we're at the will of like a guy sitting in Stockley Park on a laptop. So it is frustrating. And there's no doubt there's going to be a big VAR decision this weekend. There probably will be one in United Luton. So we'll move on to that. Just like Zach, like obviously you give us the opposing side's view. Like what do you think? What will Luton? How will you guys set up tactically? Who will be starting? Basically, who's going to score against us?
Well, we've had a very settled team recently, and obviously new signings have come in, made good impact. So I think we'll start with we'll play a bit of a 5-2-3 with like two wingers sitting a bit behind the striker, as in like very wide, but not in the midfield, if you know what I mean. But they do drop back when defending to create a bit of a 5-4-1. So it's like a 5-2-3 attacking, 5-4-1 defending, which is a very good shape. So we're going to have probably Kaminsky in goal, Alfie Dowsey left back, Tina Mengi, Tom Lockyer and Gabe Osho left in this like centre back positions. Issa Kabore will probably start right back, and then we're going to have marvellous Nick Amber and Ross Barkley running the midfield. Chidozie Ogbene on the left, my boy, I love him, and Josh Townsend on the right, and obviously Carlton Morris up top. So it's a very strong team. It's our best team, and I think that we could cause some serious problems tomorrow, because I think what the main thing about us this season has been is that holding out, not conceding an early goal, frustrating the home fans, because they think, oh, it's Luton, we'll smash these in like 5 minutes. And that's what the key was against Everton, holding out their pressure after the first 15 minutes. They should have had 3 goals. They didn't score. We got up the other end, we get a scrappy goal, then we get another one and we just sit back. So we've just got to do something like that, similar, just keep playing. I think key players, like I'd say Mengi's going to be up for it, obviously, for obvious reasons. Alfie Doughty's been absolutely phenomenal this season. Some fans want him called up to England. Ross Barkley's been looking more like himself again, but I don't think he's more a box to box now and not a young attacking midfielder he was at Everton. He's more of just like a box to box central midfielder. And obviously Morris is an absolute target man. Ogbene is just probably our best player this season. Unbelievable. When you watch the game tomorrow, you obviously being Irish, you'll know his quality, but tomorrow really show what he's about. And Townsend's looking good as well. So yeah, we've got a really good team at the moment.
Yeah, you mentioned Townsend there. I presume Phil and Jonathan, you remember, like the back end of Ollie, we drew 1-1 with Everton, and Townsend scored. I forget who bullied Fred off the ball. Fred had like 3 chances just to kick him and put him down. Then Townsend scored, went to the corner. I think that's probably the last we played at Old Trafford. Like he was kind of like moonlighting as a Sky pundit there for a while. But yeah, there's a lot of names there that I'm like, I can see you scoring. I can see Ross Barkley scoring at Old Trafford. And
man.
you talk about frustrating frustrating the home end. Give it 10 minutes and United haven't scored, people will just start getting frustrated, and not even about Luton, just the general apathy around United. So yeah, Jonathan, do you expect any change from Copenhagen, or do you think it'll be the same old and the Eriksson McTominay experiment to continue?
I'd like to think there'll be some fresh enough from Copenhagen, even just purely from a psychological point of view. As you mentioned earlier on, I think Amrabat did well enough when he came on the other night. I would like to see Mount get a start as well. I know Ten Hag mentioned in his press conference today that he was kind of injured at the start of the season and he kind of fell down the pecking order. Now he has to fight his way back in. I mean, I don't know what midfield Ten Hag is looking at, but there isn't much fighting to do to get into that Manchester United midfield. It's been a mess all season. So I'd like to see him get a start tomorrow with Amrabat. And I'd actually like to see Hannibal get back into the team as well. I mean, I said it on a previous pod with the guys. I mean, I actually don't know why he was dropped in the first place. I think he was one of our more impressive performers. He ran more than any United player has in a long while against Burnley earlier on in the season at Turf Moor, and he did well in the first half against Galatasaray. Was taken off, and then we ultimately lost the game 3-2. But he just brings that legs and energy, and I think we're going to need that tomorrow because, I mean, we can't afford to be lethargic against that midfield because Ross Barkley has always been a technically good footballer, probably technically better than a lot of our midfielders there, outside of Christian Eriksen. So, I mean, we're going to have to be on it tomorrow, and our midfield has been our weakest point. And if it's off tomorrow, Luton are going to come through. They've got some hard runners in there, no more so than the likes of Ogbene and Townsend, who are able to come up with bits of magic. And I mean, in terms of changes up top, it's hard to know. I can see him probably sticking with the Rashford, Garnacho, and Højlund combination. I thought that was doing very well midweek before obviously Rashford's red card. I could have seen them grabbing a few more goals. So I would like to see him stick with that, in fairness. But other than that, there's not much more changes we can make, especially in the back line because of the injuries. And I know Johnny Evans went off injured as well the other night. On how serious that is. But I'd probably like to see Reguilon come in as well. He started the season quite well, and I think Dallow's played an awful lot of minutes. And as we mentioned, he's been caught a few times at the back post. And I'm sure Luton will more than target that if he does start tomorrow. So I'd like to see Reguilon come in there. Not that he's a hell of a lot better defensively, but he certainly offers more going forward and offers a bit more balance with his left foot. So yeah, I think more so the midfield tomorrow. I'd like to see the likes of Amrabat and Mount and maybe Hannibal come in tomorrow and just bring that freshness, a bit of unpredictability that maybe Luton wouldn't be expecting United to start with that sort of combination. But we're going to have to start doing something different eventually because we can't just keep sticking with this McTominay, Eriksen, Fernandes roundabout because it's not really going anywhere and there's just not enough legs in it. You know, most Premier League teams are running rings around that. So yeah, I'd like to see some changes in that midfield department tomorrow.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. Common came in there suggesting that Mainu would start. I don't think that'll happen just because he hasn't played in so long and he wasn't on the bench against Copenhagen. Phil, would you like to see, as a former academy player yourself, would you like to see Mainu come into the side, not for this game maybe, but in the near future? And how would you hope United will set up for tomorrow?
Yeah, I think Mainu definitely deserves an opportunity. You know, whether that's tomorrow or in the coming weeks. I think he's been an exceptional talent. I think, as Jonathan just said, you know, this midfield is probably our biggest problem at the moment. You know, nobody's nailing down a position and sort of keeping a shirt. I think due to injuries and what have you, we have had to chop and change a lot. But, you know, nobody for me is really sort of, you know, cementing a place in the team at the moment. So for me, if I was the manager, you know, with some of the games that we've got coming up, I would, you know, give some of these younger players a chance and we've not really got anything to lose. I think, you know, with the way that we've been playing, you know, what harm would it be in giving some of these younger players a chance to come in and shine? I think, you know, with the levels of performance that we've shown this season, you know, we maybe need that just to as you know, John said there with the energy and stuff. You know, Hannibal, players like that, all right, they might be a little bit more rash. I think obviously against Newcastle, he made a few dodgy tackles and he got brought off at half time because he probably was thinking he might get sent off. But you'd much rather somebody, you know, be putting the effort in and you know, getting in people's faces and sort of not just letting the game pass you by. So I definitely think there will be changes tomorrow. I think, as you said there, Reguilon, I think he might come in for Dallow. I think, as you said, Dallow's been a lot of games recently, and he's been at fault for a few of the goals. So I would like to see Reguilon come in and give us a bit more balance on the left. And yeah, obviously the midfield is going to be a big one. Really, I can't really pinpoint what he's going to do. It's such a difficult decision at the moment with how many players we've got to choose from, and sort of the levels in performance we've seen. We can't quite get that combination of balance at the moment, and teams are just cutting through us. So that will be the biggest decision, I think, for him. And the front three I would stick with, as you say. I think we was really good the other night for that first 30 minutes, and we was looking like we was a threat every time we went forward. But again, it's trying to get these players to play regularly with each other so we can build up the sort of relationships and sort of get to know each other. I think that's been a massive problem this year all over the pitch, really. We've not had a settled 11 or a settled back four, more so that we can sort of lay the foundations for how we want to play. And obviously we've seen that with the performances and the dips in players' performances, because they're playing with different players every week.
We're not building anything at the moment. It very much just feels we're just getting by, getting a result here and there, get to the next week. And I do feel like the fact it's an international break coming up now, that he will just play. He'll just go pure pragmatism and just try and get out with a win. So yeah, I'm not expecting much. I'm not expecting many changes, but sure, we'll go for a round of predictions anyway. And I'll start anyway. I think United. I think we'll win. I think it'll be extremely stodgy. I'll go 2-1 United with Højlund finally getting off the mark in the league. How about yourself, Jonathan?
Yeah, I would traditionally have said that the first 20 minutes would be key, and if United nicked a goal or two, that it would kind of be game over. It'd be a long way back for Luton. But the way we've been playing, I mean, even if we were 2-0 up after 20 minutes, I'd still back Luton to fight back and get a draw. So it's a tough one to predict. But yeah, I was kind of thinking a dodgy 2-1 myself with a late winner coming up out of summer. We just haven't looked convincing enough to think that, like, with all due respect, even a team like Luton, that we're going to walk over them tomorrow. I just don't think we will. So I think it'll be a scrappy enough 2-1 win, and I fancy Højlund as well to get his first league goal for the club.
Yeah, it does just feel like after Wednesday night, just give Højlund service. He will get goals, or he'll be a threat. How about yourself, Phil? A bit more confident than us, or expecting another 90 minutes?
No, I'm not. To be fair, I'm sort of quite worried. Really, I think it is a massive banana skin, and I'm going to go for a win, but I'm just going to go for a scruffy 1-0. I think there's not going to be much in the game. I think Luton are definitely going to come and frustrate us. I don't really think we've got enough quality and players playing with enough, sort of your Rashfords. They're not playing to the level at the moment. I don't think we've got anyone other than Højlund really who looks like a goal threat. Obviously, McTominay has been scoring as well, but other than that, we're finding goals hard to come by. So I'm going to go for a scruffy 1-0 win late on. And I think Højlund as well. I think he's definitely due a league goal. So hopefully he can nick a winner, and we can just about hold on, which is worrying.
Yeah, it does feel like that. I hope Højlund gets off the mark, because I think the chatter on him not scoring a league goal is ridiculous, because he's obviously been banging out in the Champions League. How about yourself, Zach? Famous win for you, or what do you think?
Oh, I'm tempted. I think I do back us a lot, because I know if we play like we did against Liverpool, I think we're sneaking a 1-0 win. But I've got a feeling it's going to be tougher than that. Just because we're losing, we don't make it easy for ourselves. Like, most of the time we just get a massive result, and then the next game we go and lose So I'm going to go for a 2-2 just for now. And I'm going to say Højlund's, it's written, I've got that terrible feeling he's scoring tomorrow. First league goal. I think Nicholas Jackson scored his first league goal for Chelsea against us. So I'm going to go for Højlund and probably Rashford to get off the mark as well, because we're the type of team to give them their goals. But I will say United will go 2-0 up, and then Townsend's scrappy goal, and then a late Tiedemann Mengi at the back stick against his former club. We can dream. 2-2.
It is written in the stars that this, like you said last week with the Liverpool game, there's so many guys there. If they scored against United, you're like, oh, that makes sense. So you're probably going to be right. But we'll leave it there anyway. So Zach, you're off the game, obviously. Enjoy. You probably will. And for the rest of us, hopefully a more enjoyable 90 minutes than we've had in the last 9 months or so. So great having you on, Zach, and great to have a Luton perspective for the game.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
No worries. Nice one. Anyway, cheers, guys.